Hey everybody, this is DayTraderRockStar. I want to do a follow-up video of today's action. It was such a, over the last few days we've been putting out a couple videos. I've been putting out a couple videos focusing on the wedge pattern, how important the wedge pattern is in trading, and especially the methodology I use. It's one of the more recognizable patterns and one of the more predictable patterns. And I put a lot of emphasis on recognizing these during the market day. Explaining how they work and how to trade them. So today was a great example of seeing this bigger wedge pattern, and as I mentioned, let me see if I can actually bring up a picture of this. I wonder if I have this close by. Yeah, I do. I think I have it close by. I want to move this over here. See if take a look at this. These wedges right now. It's a small picture. Let me see if I can increase this right there. I think you can see pretty good. You have a couple different type of wedges, and again, this is kind of repeating this for people who've seen it before, of course. The rising wedge, that rising consolidated coil action of the price moving higher and then breaking down and shooting down from that. But there's two ways of seeing that. You have an extension or a rally that has been moving up, a uptrending market that finishes off in a wedge, or you have a move that is making its way down and we wedge out in a pullback phase and then follow through. And the same thing with the downward wedge. You have this extended pattern that comes down and then finally wedges out and then reverses, versus a pattern that pushes higher, and the wedge pattern is part of that pullback, and then we push higher as a continuation. So today was a great example of, and I'm going to zoom out here. You can see the overnight trade has been kind of weak over the last couple days, or even the actually the overnight trade last night. And what happens is, as you can see, we move down, but all of a sudden we start to form this wedge pattern, and things are getting compressed and stuff. So at this point during the day, we start to identify this and start to trade off of it. Now there was some fantastic, what we call HPS setups. HPS setups are, typical trade playbook plays. These are a strict code of, some strict criteria that has to set up for us to take the entry, and typically we circle those off, to identify those. All right, the circles represent buy zones, squares represent sell zones or short zones. Anything in blue usually represents one of the high probability setups, usually a divergence or something very important to pay attention to. In this case, you could actually start to identify this wedge pattern, going out to this pivot area and this pivot area and this pivot area and that pivot area. At that point, we already identified it. And as we watch it get down into an area where a wedge formation breaks out, we know that a high probability of the pattern that breaks out in that 65 to 75% area of the pattern. So it really breaks out in that zone. We're going to call it that zone right there. So we always look for the HPS zone for the bigger setups. And at this time, when you get a wedge pattern to come down into this, now we start to look at the setups. We know we have the pattern. Now we start to look. In this case, we actually had a triple stochastic setup, or all three bands of stochastics, and our reversal candle, which was our engulfing pattern there. That was our entry. I actually took that trade, and we had, as you could look now and see where that eventually went, that was the best area of the day by far. The other great area of the day was a secondary wedge that played out, and I marked this off real time. It was a great setup. We didn't have that reversal candle, but what we did have was a new wedge pattern, and from that wedge pattern, as you can see, we broke out again. And now certain things happened throughout this. Once we got the breakout of the wedge, we kind of outlined how these things here play out. They usually move up, pull back, and then follow through. So we had that. Then we started identifying some flag setups where we had that fast rotation versus a strong slow.
NQ
and then, just talking about these different setups, these playbook setups that happen. And up here we had a perfect divergence. This should be in blue, actually. This was a perfect divergence setup. The lower low and the higher high here, the lower high and the higher high. just give you an example. I say so many things. I'm talking 8 hours a day, so sometimes my tongue gets tied here, especially when we're talking about higher highs and higher lows and lower highs and everything else that goes along with it. Just remember the divergence is the higher high on the price, the lower high on the oscillator. And then from that point on, it also was hitting a volume profile line, top part of a 1, 2, 3 pattern. This was another great setup, and that great setup brought us down to another great setup, and that's how things typically work out in the markets for us. And here's a great example of a measured move. Remember, we kind of teach this as the market's going. Here's your halfway point. Here's your 100%. Here's your 65 to 75% zone. And when you break out of a pattern like this, very easy to take that lower established trend line, take that upper pivot area here, make a parallel trend line, and just draw it out there. The price comes up there. You look for your other HPS zones, add this to it, and then you have a trade setup. In this case, you have this nice downward channel. Even though we had a perfect setup with a reversal candle, you had a nice move back down. 3 points. These are what these represent. These are scalping areas. So you have to understand that this is all based off the 1 minute time frame. We're in the market from 9:30 to 4 o'clock, and we want to be able to find 5, 6 great HPS type of setups during the day and trade those. And that's what these areas are. It's not like you're in. You could in some cases get in here and just hold it. Go come back at the end of the day and hope for the best. But we'd like to lock in the profits, wait for the next setups, and continue to take advantage of the market. Because normally you don't get such a great return off of this. Normally the market will move up, then it'll move back down, and these will set up. This just happens to be a great setup because we had the 5 minute on our side. We had so many things on our side right here that we called for this to be the best area of the day, and probably the lows of the day. Now I made a call for a run to the highs of the day, and we got to the highs, but we didn't take out the 3 o'clock. Let me get all the way here. We got up to 28. We got so close to going positive on the day, but I don't believe we did. I mean, if we did, we got very close, a point or two. We ended up off 4 points, and it was interesting because we had 3 divergences lined up here, 3 opportunities for pullbacks, and here was a quick one. This was actually a fake out breakout situation because we still had some very powerful time frames on our side. But this one was a pretty decent one. This was a nice divergence, nice pullback. We came back up. We kind of another nice divergence. Remember, 1 minute time frames, and our exit scenario is really key on this. This trade is good until I get that full rotation, and that full rotation probably brought us down. Maybe, just like we did fall further. This one, the same thing. You want to get that rotation. It came right down to here, and then we actually had a bullish setup here, and it pushed us back up. But that was a lot of chop. You could have traded it, but that's it. So that's the run-through of the day. It was a picture-perfect day, a really beautiful day. This is the overnight trade right now. Markets open back up. And we had some issues out with Janet Yellen doing her speech, and the market got a little shaky here, a little around 6 o'clock. We gapped down. Things turned out to be all okay with Mrs. Yellen, and the market rallied it a little. And right now we're currently at the highs of the session. S&P futures up 8 1/4. We're setting ourselves up for a nice day tomorrow. Now we talk about the market radar section of it. And for those out there that are members, refer back to the HPS watch list. I added 2 good stocks on there tonight with their buy alerts, triggers, profit zones, and everything. So those are 2 added to the HPS site for tomorrow. Refer back to those.
Tradeometer overbought.
That you hear in the background is our tradeometer, and again, as a member, you can actually get access to that. It pinpoints buy and sell levels here, and as you can see, this thing is just tearing it up from the open now, or the reopen at 6 o'clock. We had a buy zone, then we had a sell zone. Again, these will only give you your high probability levels that are calculated. It's not going to tell you your exit scenarios, so it's going to give you the best opportunities and hopefully the best entry levels on your shorts and longs. But it doesn't mean go long here, take it off here, go short and wait for a green to go long. No, these are again same thing that we see on during the show short-term scalping setup. So we use that a lot. Another thing, very key today, wedge patterns. Another wedge pattern played out to the downside. How do we measure the measured move? You have the two pivot areas here, parallel trend line. We came down to the penny. To the penny, we tagged that trend line and reversed. So this low that we had on the ES was probably one of the better spots that we could be in right here. This also represented that underlying 1-2-3 pattern. This underlying 1-2-3 pattern is perfect. Everything about this setup was absolutely perfect. Now you can see we came down to that trend line, bounced off of it, left us a very nice hammer. And you know what? Typically these candles are good when you take out the lows and you close. We haven't taken out the recent lows. It's a decent candle. There's a couple of things missing. We're not completely oversold on the daily. The 60-minute time frame, we based our reversal off of that today because I said I've been in this market long enough to know when we start to see cycles. And we were kind of overdue going into the 5th, 6th day of a nice downward trend here. Plus we had, of course, the underlying trend line right there. So there was so many things here that were lining up for us at that point. Now we're starting to get that rotation. We haven't got a full rotation. Does this pull back down and we continue down? Is it Friday? Fridays have been awful this year. Awful. We've had some of the worst days on Fridays. So we have that going against us. The 60-minute is going for us. I like the 60-minute. We leave off the day. The 5 minutes not going to really be too important until it sets up properly. The daily is interesting. We'll see where we start off tomorrow on that. I mean, we could start to see a nice follow-through day tomorrow. That's what I'm looking for. And the weekly actually has some interesting levels to it. So we're going to continue to watch that on the weekly. But an interesting day today. The 5-minute ended up in a flag. We're going to go with an upside day tomorrow. It's a rare one on a Friday. The other thing I want to point out to you is that we're coming up to the end of the month. Tomorrow's the 25th. That leaves us Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. So end of the month coming up. We might actually see some action lead into that. Nice downward channel. Like to see the pop out of the channel. Retest this trend line back up to, well, we'll have to measure that out. Again, right now we're going to be watching for a rotation. We have a slight bias to the upside for tomorrow. Futures are higher, so, it should be exciting. Tomorrow is going to be a Friday. That means it's a very busy day here at Day Trading Radio, especially inside the room. And Paul will be trading live. He's been doing great. He'll be on the mic as I'll be in the room. And hopefully we'll make some money tomorrow on a Friday that typically is very weak. But even if it is weak, we get, these setups right here that you're seeing are both long and short. You're getting these sell signals here. They're perfect. We got 3 of them. We had our buy signals. It was perfect. Everything was really textbook today. And happy to bring this to you. So hope you enjoyed that video.